FatEnzo.com. 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 FatEnzo.com.
Oh, hi there. I'm just wondering if somebody's going to come over and ask me if I want a coffee.
They probably will. It's all good, though.
And, and I'm just thinking, do I want a coffee? Do I want a tea? Tea would probably be better for my throat, but...
It would? Why? What's wrong with your throat?
Nothing. I just... you know.
Is there something wrong?
Anticipating lots of talking. I have to do a lot of talking later today as well.
You do? Why?
I'm teaching a private childbirth education class on the Upper East Side today.
You're kind of in with all those Upper East Side moms?
I'm not really. I mostly stick to Jersey City. So
you do?
Well, I don't know. It depends. I kind of float all over, but I'm more well-known in Jersey City. I don't think in New York people are like at the top of the list of childbirth educators. In Jersey City, I know I am. That's what I love about this town. You can be the big fish in the small pond. It's very not like New York. It's okay. Hi. Okay, I'm gonna have a decaf coffee, please.
No problem.
And I guess a raspberry scone. No?
Let me check to make sure we have them.
Okay, if you don't have the raspberry, I'll take a cranberry muffin.
No problem.
That's my backup.
Bobby Pickles podcast. He always says, "That's me." With that look on his face, he'll talk about anything. Tattoos, t-shirts, politics, history, and hot sauce on everything. Bobby Pickles. Pop culture, documentaries, conspiracy theories, sarcasm, and beer. It's a conversation, start listening, cause we're all here. Bobby Pickles podcast.
That's me. Welcome to episode 15 of the Bobby Pickles podcast. Today, I'm conducting this podcast over breakfast at the Beechwood Café, just down from the Grove Street Path Stop. In the city, some say is New York City's 6th borough. Unofficially, depending on whether you're here or in Hoboken. Of course, I am referring to Jersey City. My guest today is Jayne Freeman. Jayne's a childbirth educator.
I wish that child would be quiet. You know, it's actually...
I love this. You know, Jayne, it's okay. We're using these microphones, directional microphones. It doesn't pick up.
Oh, it doesn't pick up? Okay.
No, it's all going to be
It's
ambient.
not the baby I was looking at that I was like, I hope he stays quiet. It's a totally different child.
That's interesting for a childbirth educator to be, you know.
Well, you know, I'm really into like the pregnancy and birth stage.
Oh, you are? And then after that, then it's kind of done.
You know, no, I actually do a little bit of newborn care, but that's mostly about like appeasing the parents. You know, like,
yeah.
This is normal. That is normal. You should expect to feel this way. You should not expect to do too much. The thing everybody wants to know, and they don't even talk about in classes, I always bring this in. Everybody's like, what is sex going to be like after we have a baby?
Everybody asks that? I mean, that seems like an interesting... I would ask that. No?
I wouldn't say everybody asks that. I think that that's at the forefront of their minds, and if it was a more sort of loosey-goosey environment, I
mean,
think
it's funny that you say loosey-goosey because that's in my mind. I mean, is that the like what?
I didn't mean to say it that way, but
what
yes.
happens afterwards? I mean, is it not as?
Well, let me address your question about why people don't ask the question, because I think that like in a classic. Group class environment, people are a little bit hesitant to talk about that. But I know that when I bring it up, I can see this sort of like the guys in the class who are like falling asleep just kind of perk up, and the women sort of shift uncomfortably, kind of thing. But it's but it's important to talk about, and I definitely fold it into my class because I think it's important to address those concerns.
So here's your scone and your coffee.
Yeah.
And we started talking right in the middle of the intro, but however, that is a nice touch. But let me just finish it up, all right?
Finish your intro, and then we'll go back to your...
Then we'll go back into this.
Your loosey-goosey question,
Correct,
which I can
yes.
address very...
So you're certified childbirth educator. You're certified through Childbirth Education Association of Metropolitan New York.
Wow, I'm
right?
so impressed that you did your homework.
That's right, I did, Jayne. And you also host a popular Jersey City public access show about parenting, pregnancy, and childbirth called Mamarama, right?
Yeah, I can't really gauge how popular it is because we don't have...
You don't
There's
have like
no
a
Nielsen ratings for
well,
for
I can
public
tell you
access.
when I used to live here, I saw it a couple times. I've caught it on Channel 51.
Right. Okay.
Channel 50, Comcast Cable, Channel 51 on Wednesday and Thursday nights at 10 and 6:30 p.m. respectively. Right?
Very good. Yes.
Hold on. Jane, you also write a regular column for the Jersey City Independent with the same name and same subject matter, right?
Yeah. Yes, that is correct.
All right. And, basically you just seem to me to be a very fun, eclectic, life-loving, free-spirited person. You're awesomely unconventional in the sense that you'd probably be a perfect fit for this show, for my show. And thank you for being on the Bobby Pickles podcast. I really appreciate it.
Well, you're very welcome. It's funny. I got called a free spirit in court once when I was on the stand.
Really?
I was on the stand as a character witness, and the opposing attorney was like, "Would you consider yourself to be a free spirit?" And I really bristled at that because I was like, "I know where you're trying to corner me. You're trying to make."
What do you mean? How are they trying to corner you?
Well, I think he wanted me to confess to being a free spirit, which wasn't going to look good in this
Like a hippie?
particular context. In this particular context, yeah, because to me, my image, as soon as he said that, was pot smoking, like naked dancing, maybe body painting outside in the summer sun.
You don't partake in any of those things you just listed?
Well, no, not really.
No. And maybe in your earlier days or anything like that? No, you don't believe in the legalization of marijuana
I don't know.
for recreational use?
A 12-year-old boy recently called me a hippie, too. I don't understand that,
I wouldn't say you're a hippie. I would say you're a fun-loving, free-spirited person. There's nothing wrong with that, I don't think.
Yeah. No, there's nothing wrong with that. But I also think that the childbirth education thing tends to put me in a hippie-ish category because there's that, just sort of cliche of like women who are involved in the birthy world. Like, let me just
It's true. I mean, I have that image in my head when I think about that.
Yeah, and let me paint the picture of what I don't look like. Salt and pepper hair, no pedicure, but sandals all year round kind of thing. Or maybe just sort of like, comfy, sensible clog-like shoes.
But that's not you, though, right?
No, it's not. But I do own clogs. I do really like clogs, but I always have a pedicure. And
you do?
Always have a pedicure, yes. It's like one of my,
pet peeves? I respect that.
Yeah.
I like that when women take care of their toes and stuff like that. Some women don't. They don't. they really do fall into that hippie category.
Yeah. I don't know if it's a hippie thing or it's just like lack of, that's just not your priority. I'm not going to criticize anybody who doesn't do that. It's just not my thing to let that go. But I like to be groomed. So that's one of the reasons why I don't feel like I'm a hippie. Although I do go to this hippie folk festival every summer, and I know for a fact I must be the only person who gets a pedicure before I go to the hippie folk festival, because I know I will be in flip-flops and there will be mud involved, but
that's right.
I just want to look presentable. But wait, you reminded me of something when you said that. Rewind in your head for a second. You said grooming, hippies, about like
what?
Just that, all week I have been cracking up because a friend of mine sent me a picture of her pedicured toes surrounded by oatmeal. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did see that. And then you wrote, "It's time for write a caption."
Yeah, I couldn't even come up with a caption.
Now,
for
why
that.
would she send you that? Why would she send you that? A picture? I didn't even know what it was.
Because she knows my sense of humor, and she knows that I would find that hilarious, and I did, and I couldn't stop thinking about it.
Obviously, I'm a man and I'm retarded, and I don't know what that is. I had to ask somebody, "What is this right here? Is this rice? What is this?" And somebody, of course, answered, "This is oatmeal," and it looks like it's an oatmeal pedicure. Oh. Okay. That's funny, though, right?
It wasn't a pedicure thing. It had to do with, a circulation problem, and the oatmeal was soothing the discomfort.
Okay.
But anyway.
Okay, so what exactly is a childbirth educator? I mean, isn't this a natural process? Isn't this thing coming out either way, right?
Oh, God.
What do people need instruction for regarding, a natural process?
Just think about that. Just think about it for a second.
Still got the question going. Answer it. What do you think?
If you could imagine yourself going through something as significant as birthing a child, don't you think you would like to have a better understanding about what goes on in that process? It's not what you see on television. It's not what you see in a movie. It's not a woman whose water breaks all over the floor and she starts screaming and everyone rushes to the hospital. And 5 seconds later, she pushes out a healthy baby. That's what it looks like on TV, and it could not be more different than that.
you probably have seen this documentary, right? The Business of Being Born.
Yes, of course, many times.
That's a really interesting documentary.
Yes,
it's
I
one
know a
of my
lot of
favorites.
people in it. How could it be one
You
of
do?
your favorites?
It just is. It's very interesting. Like how people do have C-sections and stuff. And like when they're talking about monkeys, they've done that to monkeys. And then the mother monkey stops caring for the children.
It's really interesting that you mentioned that line. That is one of the most controversial lines in the film. And
It
I don't
is?
know what version of it you saw, but I believe that they omitted it in a future version. Yeah, because it really upset a lot of women
Like all
who
the
have
natural hormones and everything goes to the baby while it's going through the birth canal, right? Or whatever, according to that documentary.
Well, a lot of the hormones that we're talking about go to the mother too. I mean, it's
the
a
caring, nurturing hormones and stuff, right?
It's a very complex cocktail of hormones, but at the very top of it is oxytocin, which is what people call the love hormone. And it's a really important hormone for men and women. I mean, we both get it. The most obvious parts of your life that you are flooded with oxytocin is during orgasm. That's probably like the most, if you can imagine just
Really?
like what
And
that,
so that
feeling
connects
is,
the two.
that chemical feeling that you're experiencing. It's not just like, oh, wow, that felt really good. There's something else behind that. It is chemistry.
Okay.
It is chemistry. And one of the things about oxytocin for women and orgasm, I might add, is that it bonds the woman to the person who delivers that dose of oxytocin. So that's one of the reasons why women are less successful at casual sex.
Gotcha.
There's that sense of like bonding between the couple that a man can sort of like do without. Now, I don't really know what the oxytocin levels, like how they differ between men and women, but they are there. They are important. And let me also point out, you could just get an oxytocin rush by just being with someone you love or hugging someone or sitting down to a good meal. It doesn't have to be connected to sex. It's,
So you get this burst of oxytocin when you're giving birth, right? And then they're basically saying that when the C-section is done,
right.
that
it
is
bypasses
it
that,
bypasses
skips
that.
over it, yeah.
And so what do you feel about that? I mean, you're just saying that it was omitted and it was, this is very controversial. You don't believe in this kind of thing?
Oxytocin, let me just explain that rush that we're talking about in a natural childbirth. It's a combination of things. There are other things that come into play. There's endorphins, too. You've heard of endorphins and, runner's high. So basically, when a woman gives birth naturally, the idea is that she gets the greatest oxytocin chemical rush that she'll ever have in her life. And when we interrupt that by drugs, right, by giving her pain-relieving drugs, we diminish that a little bit. Now, she still gets a rush because she's just delivered a baby, and that's a really amazing and profound moment for her. So I'm not going to say that there's not something joyous about it.
What do you try to impart on these people that come to you that you teach and whatnot? Do you try to like talk to them about doing the whole natural way?
No, I don't.
No, you don't?
No.
You're just like, whatever you want to do. I'll tell you what you can expect.
That's exactly right. Yeah, without the cavalier attitude. It's not, do whatever you want to do. I mean,
you're a little bit more professional about it.
Yeah, the whole point of my class is to deliver options. It's like no one can predict what a birth will turn out to be. That's the one thing that we know, is that it's completely unpredictable. So you should be aware of and anticipate as best as you can all the different scenarios that may unfold. And it's impossible to ever explain all of them. And that's why a class is so important.
Right.
Because you've got, thank you.
Can I have some more coffee too, please?
You've got... in a hospital situation, you've got any number of things that can happen to you in the name of, accelerating a birth, just making it go faster, or protecting the mother, protecting the baby. You're hooked up to a lot of monitors. You're given different drugs.
But apparently, according to that documentary again,
yes.
which I'll cite
I
once
love
again,
that you keep referring back to it.
I mean, I like it. I like that documentary. It's really good. It's very interesting.
I'm still shocked that you've
I
seen
like
it.
all documentaries.
I don't know.
I'm
That's cool.
completely hooked on documentaries.
But
That's
I
the only
don't
thing
know I don't know any guy that's not a dad or wasn't about to be a dad that has watched that willingly.
Well, I'm not a normal person. I'm very inquisitive, and I'm interested in all kinds of stuff. But anyway, so they say that basically, you know, you go through the hospital, one thing leads to another, they give you an epidural, blah, blah, blah. This leads to another thing that they have to give you.
Yeah, you're talking about the classic cascade.
They're constantly giving you all these drugs to do something that your body is naturally made to do, right? And you're not supposed to be in stirrups in the first place. It's not normal. It says, like, you're supposed to be kind of like crouching, I guess, or like, right? Like, supposed to be almost standing
squat
up.
Position
Squat
helps.
position, right?
Yeah, well, because it just opens the pelvis more. Laying down flat
like
on your back
we
is not...
start off the whole process like in America wrong, right? I mean, it's like a conveyor belt.
Well, I love that you've like truncated the entire film into this little snapshot of like the conveyor belt, which is definitely how they express that in the business of being born. I wouldn't say it's as automatic and unfeeling as it's portrayed in that film. That's one of the issues I have with that a little bit, is that people walk away from it feeling very polarized about it. Hospital birth's bad, natural at home.
Natural hippie birth.
Hippie birth
is good.
Right.
Which I thought, coming to talk to you today, you would be a proponent of. I thought that you'd be all about the hippie natural birth kind of scenario. But evidently you're just go with the flow, whatever you want to do.
Well, listen, I may be for me personally, but
personally you are?
I really think that it's about what is within the comfort zone of the woman and the couple giving birth. You could say to a person like, oh, you're going to have this amazing experience if you give birth at home, and that may be absolutely terrifying for someone. Or they may not feel the confidence in their body to to go through the process unmedicated.
Yeah, but
I know plenty of women who have like very, very happy, satisfying experiences going down the sort of the medical model, and are completely happy with that, and don't really, pause to look back at it and be like, wow, I mean, they're perfectly content with that, is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
The ones who aren't are the ones who the second time around or the third time around choose to do it very differently. And that's Ricky Lake's story.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. Tell me about that, because I saw a picture on your website with you and Ricky Lake.
Yeah.
How did you meet Ricky Lake, and what did you do for her? She came to you for consultation? Or?
No, she didn't.
She didn't?
She got into this like a little bit before I got into it. So
she kind of does the same thing? She's a childbirth educator?
No, I would say she's more of an advocate. She and her partner in the film, Abby Epstein, really...
oh, yeah, that was in Business of Being Born. That's right.
Yeah, she has... They both have major roles in the film.
Yeah.
Their whole thing is about advocacy and education, just trying to point out to women, there are other options. You don't have to just accept what's been handed to you by our society, or just because you go to the OB you go to and you're like, yeah, okay.
So how did you meet Ricky Lake?
Well, all birthy people in the New York area travel in the same circles. We go to the same fundraisers. We go to the same
people.
Yeah, we go to the same fundraisers. We go to the same parties. We go to the same film screenings. That one was a great party. You would have loved that. They had it at that sex shop in Soho called Babeland.
Okay.
Are you familiar with
No.
it? It used to be called Toys in Babeland. Now it's just Babeland. It's run by women, and it's considered to be the only women-friendly, or the first woman-friendly sex shop in the New York area. I think their original store might have been on the West Coast, but they brought the idea to New York as a place that's like safe and comfortable for women to go in if they want to buy a vibrator or something.
Picture a woman just going in there crying and being emotional, basically.
No, what are you talking about? It's a sex shop. One of the funny things that they did is when the owners opened up a branch in Park Slope in Brooklyn, they put a changing table in the bathroom for babies. Do you know what that is? That little thing that flaps down. You've seen it in a bathroom before. So that was considered hilarious by the press, who was just like, oh my God, it's a sex shop, but you can bring your baby in and change. They expect you to do that, right? She thought it was a good touch, the woman Claire, because she had a toddler of her own at the time, or maybe an even younger baby, and was just like, well, I would appreciate this convenience, so I'm going to put this in my shop.
That's awesome. I like that forward thinking,
It's not just forward thinking. It's really, it is that, but it's also this idea that, like, this is not a forbidden, seedy place to go to on the old 42nd Street. This is not what this is about. You're going to be greeted by women who their position is not to judge you or anything. You know, you just go in there and you talk about what you're looking for, and they'll help you out.
What made you want to be a childbirth educator? What got you into this whole thing? You know, you're Italian Catholic, right? Aren't you supposed to be like all filled with guilt? Like, you talk about a lot of this racy stuff.
Do not bring my religion into it. I am not Catholic by any stretch.
Not?
No, I converted myself. I am Italian, but I converted myself to Judaism when I was 6 years old.
Are you really?
Okay, maybe it's not official, but I present myself as a Jew.
You do?
And when someone assumes that I am a Jew, I do not disabuse them of that fact. That's a lawyerish term. I love that.
So can you talk about that? Like, what made you want to do that?
No. Let's talk about your question, which was what made you become a childbirth educator.
Why? I find that fascinating, though. It's pretty interesting. What made you want to convert to Judaism?
I don't know. I think it was just like rebellion against my parents at a young age. And, you know, it just so happened I grew up in a very Jewish environment. All my friends were Jewish, and the first boy that I, you know, pretended to marry when I was 6 years old was Jewish. Coincidentally, I went on to marry a Jewish boy with the same name. But I mean, that was my easiest conversion to Judaism.
So you were married. You were married to a Jewish man, and you had children with him, right?
Yes. So
the
I was
kids are Jewish, correct? Do you raise them?
No, that's considered.
Well, no, it goes up to the mother. Right?
Passes through the mother's line.
But still, even though, I mean, you didn't raise them as Jewish or whatever. You let them pick for themselves.
I tried to, but see, they rebelled against me.
They did?
One of them feels more in line with Judaism than the other one does. It's really weird. It's very weird in our house. Wait, let me just explain for a second that. When I was about to have kids, I said to my husband, I'm like, well, listen, I think I should make the conversion official now because I'd like the kids to be born Jewish. This is before the first kid.
You're insane, by the way.
And he goes, what? What do you mean you're going to convert? I'm like, well, I'm talking to this rabbi. And he goes, how much is it going to cost? That was his big question. He was concerned that it was going to cost a lot of money to convert. So... Anyway,
what is it about Judaism that you find so appealing and stuff?
No, you know,
I've actually had this conversation with, like, by the way,
yeah.
You know, I'm from Florida. I'm from Tampa area. Tampa is not West Palm and all that stuff. We do not have a prevalent Jewish community. Right. And to be honest with you, I mean, honesty to a fault. That's my motto and stuff. I was somewhat anti-Semitic when I first moved up here. I'll go ahead and say it, like, because I just was raised around like kind of like truck driving, like redneck kind of people and stuff, very closed-minded. When I got up here, I definitely opened up and stuff, and I really do appreciate Jewish people, and I like how they do business, especially the you know, the more religious ones,
the Orthodox ones, the
Hasidics and stuff. But what was it for you growing up here that made you find it so appealing to go against like the whole, because you're Italian, you know, and Catholic, right? Were you baptized Catholic as a child?
I don't remember.
You don't remember? You just went against the
parents. I suppose I was.
Were your parents very life-loving, you know, free-spirited people like you are?
No, they weren't at all. Nor were they terribly religious. But to answer your question, you know, I think for a kid like me, I really saw that the families around me that I admired were the Jewish families. And when you grow up in an environment like that, and we're not talking about like super religious Orthodox types, we're just talking about like
secular ones,
right? Your regular sort of run-of-the-mill suburban Jews, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just really liked what I saw in terms of the attention to family, the attention to education. That's something that like not a lot of people realize. As I got older and realized that.
Italians have a great attention to family, however, not so much to education, though.
The education thing is lacking.
Yeah, but they have a great, you know.
Yeah, and, you know, like one of the fundamental pieces of Judaism is about questioning things, challenging things. This is why people find Jews to be argumentative or just a pain in the ass in terms of, like, here's a great joke, right? Why does a Jew always answer a question with a question? And why shouldn't a Jew answer a question with a question? Okay, but there's a whole like section of. I
like that. I like the fact that they question things. They seem to be very worldly people.
But you're meant to do that in the name of education. You're meant to look at your religion and say, why is it that we do it this way? Why don't we do it that way? Et cetera, et cetera. So there's a huge emphasis on challenging and questioning and, provoking those things. And if you look at, like, Catholicism, it's the exact opposite of that.
I know.
They try to shut everything down. Don't you dare question the word
I
of God.
went to Catholic school my whole entire life.
Right.
Since 0, straight in Catholic school. And you know what? I rebelled so bad. I was like kicked out of every high school and stuff, you know?
And that's what happens. You don't see Jewish kids rebelling like that.
They don't, huh?
They don't. They're just kind of like, I have the freedom to question and challenge everything that they're telling me. And so, definitely...
They don't run away from it.
It's
like
definitely
they do
something
in
you don't
Catholicism.
rebel against the way you would in Catholicism, I think. So.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just, I felt a little bit like the odd duck, not being the one Jewish one out of, like, my millions of friends that were all Jewish.
That's totally, like, backwards, though, right? Like, what you hear is usually, like, the one Jewish kid on the block, basically.
Yeah, let me explain that. That was a big wake-up call to me when I got older, that I realized that it's the other way around in most of the country.
Right.
I didn't understand. Like, I didn't understand that not everybody had all the Jewish holidays off, that not everybody was, had a synagogue on, like, every other block. I didn't know that. You only know what you're exposed to as a kid. So,
like me. I was exposed to all the
you grew
retarded
up the way
idiots.
you did because of what you were exposed to. But listen, when I was in college, I went to visit a friend at the University of Massachusetts, and I bumped into, it was a huge school, right? So I bumped into somebody I went to high school with, right? So we're walking along, and there were a whole bunch of people around us, and we're talking, and I was like, oh, man, remember at your bar mitzvah, blah, 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 blah? And there was, like, a silence.
Because you said that, like, loudly, openly, like, right in the middle of all these people?
Yes, and not only that, but one of his friends was like, what? A bar mitzvah?
So
what?
he didn't even tell anybody?
No.
He was just...
No.
Wow.
And I remember the guy saying something even worse than that. Something like, you're not one of those. Like, I believe that was the expression he used. And I looked at my friend from high school, and he had this, like, awful expression on his face. Like, oh, boy.
Why did you just out me?
My cover was just blown.
Yeah.
And I just changed the subject, or I blocked it, or whatever. I don't remember what happened after that, but it really stuck with me.
Did you ever hang out with your friend anymore? Or did you just...
I don't know. It was just like I saw him in passing. Yeah, he's probably my friend on Facebook.
You saw him in passing. You totally screwed him. Then you just dipped out.
Oh, listen, that's not my fault that you chose to go to a school that's full of, like...
Yeah, well, I mean, that's like, what, like some kind of Ivy League place up there?
Small-minded. No, UMass is just...
Oh, yeah.
What's UMass? It's like 40,000... You know, it's a state university. It's not exactly the cream of the crop.
Ooh.
No, I mean, it's a decent school, but it's not like, it's not catering to some, like, small elite faction that attracts a lot of, like, Jewish intellectuals. Let's just say that.
Right. Getting back to the childbirth education thing, like, just to come full circle, the original question I asked you was, what got you into all that? What got you wanting to be that?
Well, I had 2 really incredible births with my daughters. The first one, I knew I wanted to do it all natural. I was just afraid of the hospital model. I didn't like the idea of having drugs, or I just felt very confident that I was going to be able to go through a natural process as long as I had water and support. What I mean by water is like hydrotherapy, being the ability to get into water, like a jacuzzi and so forth. So I chose a birthing center with the jacuzzi, the whole routine. I had a couple of good friends at my birth, in addition to my husband, obviously. And I had an amazing experience. And it's like, I compare it to how somebody must feel when they jump out of a plane for the first time and have a successful landing. You're just like, oh, man, that was incredible. I want to do it again. And then my second birth was really, really fast. I almost had her in the Holland Tunnel, but we made it to the hospital in time. And, it was like 90 minutes start to finish. So
one happened naturally. At a child,
they both happened.
They both happened naturally, but you were at the hospital for the second one?
Both times I was at a birthing center.
Okay.
Birthing center is a little different. It's situated in a hospital, in my particular case, but it looks more like a hotel room. There are no, like, IV bottles and tubes and wires and monitors and so forth. There's just a big bed and a jacuzzi.
Right.
And a rocking chair and a couple of other things that you might need.
And so you actually have the child in the water?
No, you don't.
What's the jacuzzi for? Just to relax you and stuff like that?
Well,
Get
I
you
mean,
prepared?
let's face it, childbirth is painful. It's not
And stressful, right?
It's not pleasant. No, I would not say it's stressful. It's stressful if you're scared. But if you're not scared, if you trust in your body, you're educated, you know what to expect more or less, and you have good support around you, it shouldn't be scary. It wasn't for me. There was more of a sense of like, when is this going to be over? Like, I really want to go home. At one point in the middle of it, I was like, okay, I'm going home now. I just didn't want to. I just didn't want to be there, and that's part of the pull to have a home birth, because your home is your comfort zone and your security. Nothing about this hospital was comforting to me, except for the kind of concept that it was a hospital, but that was about it. So,
my buddy Gary is married to this hippie type. Actually, she's Italian. I know that means nothing.
Is there a parallel there that I should
I don't know. I don't know, but I'm just saying.
Tell me.
He had a natural birth. She wanted to have a home birth and whatnot. He was telling me about it, though. It was ridiculous. Just in the whole male-to-male fashion. About like jumping in the water with her and stuff, and have to finger her butt, stuff like that. It was crazy. He was like fingering her butt right in front of her mom.
Why do you have to do that?
I don't know.
Did she ask for that?
But I think it was part of the whole thing or something. But he was doing that, and it was crazy. Sent me a picture of the placenta.
Well, it's funny you say that in front of her mom,
in front
as
of
though
hip like
yeah, but you
naked
say that
in front
as
of the
though it were
mom.
like a sexual act. There's nothing sexual about that.
Well, he was saying it like that. He was just saying it was ridiculous.
That's because he was saying it to you. But in the moment, if a midwife said, "I want you to, manually stimulate her anal sphincter," there was a good reason to do that. Well, it probably had to do with.
So this is a normal thing that occurs.
I can't say I've heard of that, but there is something called the sphincter law, and it just basically means that like once one is open, they can all sort of blossom open. And that, in order to get that baby out, a woman should be as open as possible. Kind of starts in the mind and kind of works its way through the body. There are some midwives that recommend making out with your partner during the labor process as a way to kind of open things up.
Okay. So you have this great experience giving birth to your children.
Oh, so to answer your question, it wasn't just that. What really got me into it was doing my public access show.
How did you start doing the public access show? How did you get inspired to do that?
I'll tell you exactly how I got inspired.
Tell me.
I remember distinctly. I was in a fight with my husband, who is now my ex-husband, and I retreated into my bedroom. We had separate bedrooms, and I turned on the TV. Yeah, I always liked having separate bedrooms. I'm very English that way. It's very civilized.
Is that what English people do?
Yeah, well, it's like a
stereotype.
No, it's like the royals. Like if you had Lord and Lady Grantham, for example, from Downton Abbey, they have separate bedrooms.
Yeah.
Sometimes they,
My grandparents had separate bedrooms at the end.
Oh, that's usually because of snoring and discomfort and stuff. Yeah. But I just was like, listen, I want my own room, because he was really messy, so it was easier for me to have my own room. Anyway, let's just jump ahead. So I'm in a fight with my husband, and I turn on the TV, and I'm skipping channels, and I land on Channel 51, Public Access. And there I see this guy lit by candles on either side of him with like a black, sort of a ski cap on, and shirtless, and he's talking directly into the camera, and he's doing like a tarot reading for the entire zodiac chart. Instead of it being like about you personally, he'd be like, Aries, oh yeah, this is going to be a really great time for you, in this really weird kind of hypnotic voice.
I like that you pick Aries. That's what I am.
I knew that.
What are you?
I do that sometimes. I feel people's zodiac sign.
What are you?
I'm a Capricorn.
Capricorn?
Yeah, that's really weird. I've done that many times with people. Sometimes I just have to touch them, and then I get a sense of that.
Yeah, I actually do, too. It's weird. I know those.
I'm a little weirdly psychic.
For some reason, I know those things very well. J.P. Morgan said the difference between a millionaire and a billionaire is if you believe in astrology or not.
Ooh, that's
and I love
funny.
the fact that he said that.
That's funny. I don't know how much a big a believer I am, but it's more my psychic little abilities.
No, you don't think that we have a general personality trait when it comes to that stuff? Because I find that you do. I've seen that.
I don't know.
You don't believe in it. You're Jewish.
I'm a little intellectual. No, but so he's doing his thing. He's like, this is going to be a really interesting time for you. What I see is a romance on the horizon. Like, he was just really hypnotic and weird. And everything he said was so generic, it could have applied to anybody, you know? And I'm like, wait a minute, this dude is on TV, lit by candles, just staring into the camera. I could do that. And in fact, I could find more compelling things to talk about. And then I thought for one split second, and I knew. I was like, I'm going to talk about pregnancy and birth. Why not? And about being a parent in Jersey City, because I was pretty new to Jersey City.
Where were you living before?
In Manhattan.
In Manhattan?
Yeah. And so we moved to Jersey City.
Where'd you grow up?
In Bergen County, in Fairlawn, very Jewish town.
Okay.
Now it's a very Russian Jewish town, but back then it was a very just generic Jewish town.
When did you move to Manhattan and stuff? When did you come to the city? How old were you? And what brought you here?
Well, after I graduated from college, I went straight to Europe. I was sick of the U.S., so I lived in Europe for about 2 years. And when I came back from Europe, I was like, well, there's nowhere.
Where were you living in Europe? Italy? Or
No,
were you
just Paris.
Backpacking around or all?
No, I hated backpacking. I didn't even have one. I like to stay in places. So I
you
spent a
lived
lot
in
of
Paris?
time. Yeah.
Did you learn any French while you were there?
No, yeah. I mean, I chose Paris because I spoke French. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And then so you come back.
Right. So then I came back, and then I was just like, well, I have to live in New York. So I didn't find an apartment in New York initially. It's a little difficult when you're like in your 20s and you're not really like
making
money and what have you. But finally I did. My boyfriend and I moved into an apartment on the Upper West Side, and I lived in New York for many, many, many years. And then
how'd you meet your husband?
Oh, we went to college together. We've known each other for many years. So after that boyfriend, the European boyfriend that I lived with.
So did you bring back a European?
I brought him back, yeah.
Okay.
I brought him back after we lived together for a long time, but we broke up basically because he said outright to me, he's like, I'm not going to ever be ready to be a father. I'm just not. I know that about myself. And that was a deal breaker for me. As much as I hated the idea, it wasn't like I was like, okay, well, then we're done. I just kind of mulled it over, and then he made the choice. He was like, I think we're, postponing the inevitable. And it was heartbreaking. It's very hard when you really love somebody, but your ideas for life are not aligned,
Exactly.
You don't have the same goals and so forth. So anyway, I have this thing where I like to keep a guy on the back burner. I don't really do that anymore, but I'm always like, I'll say like, okay, I'm with this person and I'm very happy, but Alex, he's my back burner guy, and sometimes I'll tell the person I'm with, I'll just be like, he's my back burner guy. What do you mean by that? Well, if something should happen to you or we break up or whatever, he's the one I'm going to make a beeline. Yeah, but he's in a relationship. Well, but we don't know. This might happen in 2 years, So
I love it.
David was always a good back burner person for me because we got along really well. We had a lot of similar interests. We both went to photography school. Like, we were just, So that's exactly what happened. Like, shortly after the breakup, it was almost like I was all mired in my depression. Then all of a sudden, one day I was like, oh, wait a minute. I wonder where David is. And it's a little bit romantic because I found him on the street. He was always... he had a T-shirt business, actually.
Really?
And, with his friend. And they made really cool T-shirts back then. But anyway, there was a street fair on the Upper West Side where I lived, and I was certain that he would be there. So I went from one end to the other, just every single street, going back and forth across the street. And then all of a sudden I saw his partner. I was like, where's David? And he's like, oh, he's over there at that booth. Like, they had 2 separate stations. And I kind of just rolled up. I was like, hey, what's up? He's like, oh, look at you. I was like, yeah, I just got back from Sicily. I was so brown. It was ridiculous.
Oh, it's awesome.
And he's like, so what's up with you? I was like, oh, nothing. Just, in the process of breaking up with my boyfriend, looking for a new place to live. I've really embraced my Italian roots, so I'm trying to find a place in Little Italy. And he was like, oh, well, that's interesting because my girlfriend and I are kind of in the process of breaking up. I was like, really? Give me your number. Let's get together. And that's kind of how it went down.
Wow.
Before we knew it, we were living together.
Look at you taking the bull by the horns.
Always. I don't like to not be in a relationship. It's a little bit of a problem.
Really?
Yeah.
That's what, you know what? I do the same freaking thing. I always do that. Jumping from one, and I have back burners too, actually. It's so funny.
I may have like invented a concept, that,
Yep, that concept's awesome.
that people are going to talk about.
That's right. You got to do that. But isn't it kind of like, don't you think it's not having both feet in like the relationship? You have it kind of like one out a little bit?
Oh, no, I never felt that.
No?
No, I was definitely
Something
very
never
happy.
happens,
Well, I was just being, practical.
Yeah.
You never know. And then I ended up marrying David, and it's a little bit like marrying like your
Best friend?
best friend, kind of.
Yeah.
Well, it makes it sound wrong. It makes it sound like we didn't have
The
that
physical.
other kind of chemistry. It was a lot of that, but less romance. It wasn't a very romantic relationship. In fact, when I told my current boyfriend, he's like, "Can I just ask you, how did David propose to you?" And I was like, "Oh, it was like a non-issue." It was basically, he said to me, "All right, look, I've got my mother's ring. I was going to put it in a taco, but..." And then as soon as I said that, my boyfriend started laughing so hard, he fell on the floor, gasping for breath. He just kept saying, "A taco?"
I was going to put it in a taco. What the hell?
So disgusting. Like, just the idea of putting like a beautiful engagement ring in a taco is so wrong, but it's also so David. And yeah, the way he did it was so like unromantic and unceremonious, and it was his mom's ring, from their, from her divorced marriage. Like, other people said to me, like, "Oh, you shouldn't take that ring. It's got bad karma." And I was like, "Don't be ridiculous."
And then you gave the ring back afterwards, right? Because
How do you know
it's
I did
the
that?
mom's. Because it's the mother's ring? I don't know. I'm just asking. I'm
Yeah,
assuming.
you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And when he asked me for it, I felt like he was ramping up for a fight. That I would be like, "No, you gave me that ring, blah, 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 blah." But I was like, "Yeah, of course you can have it back."
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, because it belonged to the mom, and it was a big, big stone, and it was so unlike me that I often turned it to the palm side because it embarrassed me how large it was.
So did you have a traditional Jewish wedding? I'd
No,
imagine?
no. We had a very, very untraditional wedding.
You did?
Yeah, we first got married at City Hall in New York, and then 2 days later we had a big party on a stationary boat. This really old, cool boat that used to be in the Hudson River. I think it's gone away by now. It's called the Yankee Clipper, I think. We just thought, like, we used to rollerblade down there all the time, and we were like, that would be a cool place to have a party. So our wedding became our party. It was very casual. It was like a lot of barbecue and food that we brought in, and, I hate long ceremonies. I really, really hate them. So I didn't want to have a big, like, fanfare or anything. I basically, like, came up to the top of the boat in my mini dress, wedding dress, right? And bare legs, and I just was like, his older brother did a ceremony that was really a toast. It was like he wrote the toast, and it was beautiful, and it was literally 2 minutes long at tops.
And then you got right into the party.
Every second of those 2 minutes, I felt like I was going to faint. Like, I just hated that part of it. I don't know why. I just was like, ugh, make this go away. Even though what he said was very beautiful and touching and so forth. But, then it was like, I don't know if he said, "I now pronounce you," but whatever. I mean, it was already done, but that was it. And then we just went back to, like, having a big party. I had...
That's a cool way to do it.
A well-known DJ from WFMU was the DJ, and let a couple of other people sit in. I just like the idea of, like, having DJ music, and we had so much fun. It was a really great party. I would, please, decaf, thank you. It was a great party. I really enjoyed my wedding.
Yeah.
It was very casual. It was very fun. I remember, like, in the weeks leading up to it, if David we bumped into somebody that we, knew and hadn't seen in a while, he would be like, "Oh, we're getting married in 3 weeks. Why don't you come to the wedding?" Like,
just inviting whoever.
Yeah, just inviting people along
Come to the
way.
party.
You know how people are really, like, uptight about, like, "Oh, it's, $250 a plate." You can't just invite people. It wasn't like that,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It was fun.
What was his astrological sign, by the way?
Capricorn as well. That's why we butted
weird.
heads all the time.
That's weird. You can't do that. You gotta have something
His
different.
birthday was 2 days before mine.
Really?
Yeah, Christmas. He's a Christmas baby. He always called himself the baby Jesus.
I know, right? Capricorns
Jewish,
Get,
you know?
Capricorns get screwed all the time, right? As far as their birthdays, right?
Yep.
Did you feel like that growing up?
I certainly did.
You're like, what the
Oh,
heck?
I know what I want to tell you about the Christmas thing.
What?
In terms of my girls, David, the Jewish one through and through, buys the Christmas tree and has all the ornaments that he inherited from his mother and his grandmother, also Jews.
Okay. How do they have ornaments then?
The grandmother just liked the Christmassy thing, and she was like, we're not religious about it. It's just a tree, you know. And then I don't get a tree. I don't have any ornaments. And I have a menorah, and we do
Let me ask you
the
a question
lighting of the
about
candles.
Christmas. For me, I dislike Christmas. To be
Oh,
honest
I do
with you.
too. I hate
don't
it.
like Christmas. I think it's ridiculous. I think that it's just a marketing ploy for
Yeah,
people to go
that's
out
exactly
and
how
buy
I'm
shit.
super cynical
I
about
think it's
it.
ridiculous, man. I'd rather give
but you-
presents throughout the year for genuine means, you know.
Yeah,
not-
I agree with you, but here's the issue. I have kids, so
So what? Teach them from a young age that it's stupid and ridiculous. No? Or just perpetuate the same bullshit lie.
I'm already like I'm under fire by a lot of people for being so cynical about Christmas.
I'm cynical about it, and I speak my mind.
I think my kids accept it about me, but my boyfriend's a complete opposite. He's
Really?
really traditional.
Is he Jewish?
No,
He's not, okay.
He loves making Christmas like super, steeped in tradition and very specific things that he does with his son and his family and everything. And I'm just like, I can't wait to fast forward through this, all of December.
Yeah,
and
me
just
too.
get
I am
to-
the same exact way.
Wait, listen, you'll relate to this.
Okay.
I was in Starbucks a couple of weeks ago, and there was some music on that sounded Christmassy to me, and I almost had like a little anxiety attack because for a split second I was like, oh no, is it that time? I was like, oh no, it's not. It's January. It's okay, or whatever it was.
So he has a son. You
Yeah.
have two daughters.
Yeah.
So you both have children. Do you see marriage down the road with this happening possibly? Or
No, I mean, not.
do you want to get married again?
Not really. No, I'm really happy with the way my life is right now. I like having a committed partner, being in a relationship without having the marriage
Like the
element
law.
to
Like,
it.
isn't that crazy that you have to go in front of like the law and be like,
No, I mean, there are some elements to it that would make sense. Like, certainly it would be helpful for us for tax reasons and insurance reasons and so forth. But those aren't good reasons for, in my mind, to...
But then when you break up, you're like in front of somebody like trying to divvy stuff up. I just find that that's very ridiculous.
Well, most people don't go into marriage assuming that it's going to end up in the courtroom, right?
Of course, yeah.
Divvying up their assets.
But it does happen.
It does happen 1 out of 2 marriages. That is the statistic in the United States, and I would gather that it's probably even more than that.
Right. So on your business card, right, it says
Yes.
childbirth educator,
educator.
writer,
Right.
mother.
Right. Yes.
Out of all those 3 things, what do you find to be like the most gratifying?
Wow, that's such an interesting question. They all are gratifying to me. I can't separate one without the other. I'm a childbirth educator because I'm a mother. I'm a writer. Like, I can't not write.
Copy and you edit copy, right?
Yes, but I also do a lot of like personal writing. I'm working on 2 books at the moment.
Talk about that.
Oh, just a second. But I have to say the prevailing descriptor would have to be mother. Yeah, I mean, I really am a mom, I mean, there's no getting around that, and that is very much my identity, and it's what I bring to almost everything I do. I bring that to my childbirth education. I bring that to my writing. I don't sit around and write about, I don't know, stereo equipment. I write about the parenting experience, or I write about pregnancy and childbirth.
What else do you write about? Don't you write about like, you said something like porn kind of stuff?
I don't write porn.
You were just joking.
I found that I was actually a very good erotica writer, and I got like my stories accepted there's like one magazine out there that publishes that, but then I stopped pursuing it for whatever reason.
You did? Why?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure. I just didn't like.
Right.
I enjoyed it, but I don't. Maybe it was just the pressure of like writing it and getting it accepted by the magazine, and I have no idea. I really, I haven't delved into why I didn't pursue that line, but I'm the book I'm working on now has elements of that in it because I really feel that people don't. It's very difficult to write in that language in a convincing way. There are very few writers who are able to do that. I would have to put Anais Nin at the top of the list of women writers.
Who is that? Is that the one who wrote that what's it called? The new one that everybody's reading, all the women
No, she's long dead,
what's
Anais
the one?
Nin.
What's that one? That,
the 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah,
that's,
blah, blah,
that's
blah.
Not, that's not considered...
Have you read that?
No, and it's not...
You've never read it?
No, it's not... It doesn't interest me because it's cheesy. It's not good writing. There's something very hollow and there's something about it that doesn't ring authentic.
But you haven't read it though. How do you?
I've read excerpts.
Oh,
yeah. I've read enough excerpts to be like, okay, I get what this is. At least I get a sense of the use of language. Like I said, it's a very tricky language that you have to use, and I have to say again, Anais Nin did it beautifully. She was poetic about it, and she had a long affair with Henry Miller, who also wrote great erotica, at the time considered porn, when he did Tropic of Cancer, Tropic of Capricorn, even Quiet Days in Clichy, which is a beautiful, really skinny little book about him living outside of Paris, and Anais would come and visit him, and that's the story Henry and June, that has to do with Henry Miller. I don't know if you know that. It was a book made into a film.
Wasn't that a movie starring Johnny Depp?
No.
It was something in June.
No, that
Benny
was
and June.
Benny and June.
That was probably a spin-off of that, though.
The idea of melding those two ideas is frightening.
I bet you that came from that, though.
Yeah, I bet it did, yeah.
It probably did,
you're
right?
Yeah. Okay, let me take a bite of scone.
Go ahead. Not to make things completely and totally awkward. I know you're talking about motherhood and whatnot, but if I'm still going to stay true to the whole honesty to a fault paradigm and stuff that I have to stick with, I would say that you're actually, that you're the quintessential MILF. Sorry I had to go there.
No, that's okay.
Have you heard that before? Have you been compared to that?
Listen to this. My daughters came to me not long ago, and they're like, Mom, what I think I know what MILF means. And inwardly I cringe because I don't want to hear those words come out of their mouth. My daughter goes, it must be moms in their late 40s because I keep hearing you get called that.
Oh, my God. Really? That's funny. I didn't put that together, that acronym.
Yeah, moms in their late 40s. That's what and I was like, yes, honey, that is what it means.
So she keeps on hearing you get called that.
Well, she has some very precocious friends at school. Boys at that age, they're 13, and they notice anything female, anything with boobs.
I'm not 13. I'm 32, but I'll go ahead.
Yeah,
and say
but you have Arrested Development.
Yeah. Oh, and speaking about that Arrested Development kind of thing, I've heard you say stuff about being, kind of immature, right, for your age. Or what was it you actually used? You used a word like chronically immature or whatever, or something like that.
That's accurate. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel that is something that
you really
keeps
are.
me
You're
young.
very. I think that's part of the whole MILF thing or whatever. You're very young. You just act.
I don't slow down.
You have a love of life, and you do all kinds of crazy stuff. You're a skateboarder,
right? I skateboard. I ice skate. I'm always active.
Talk to me about the skateboarding thing.
Oh God, that came about. I didn't expect that. My daughter's friend, a boy, had a skateboard, a type that I had never seen before, and we were on the smooth paths in Liberty State Park, and I was like, let me try that. Can I just get on that? Because you make it look so easy. He was like, yeah, sure. So I got on it, and I found I could do it. It actually worked. And then I got a little obsessed with it. One day I texted him in the morning. I was like, can I borrow your skateboard today? And at first he wrote back, no. And then a minute later he was like, okay. I was like, oh, thank you. And I think on his way to school, he dropped it off at my house. I think that's what he did. And this is at a time in my life when I really should have been job hunting. And I'm out on my skateboard. Just, oh my God.
How do you ride? Do you goofy-footed? That's how I do it.
No, I don't.
No? Oh, you're like...
I have very good form. I mean, he taught me. He was like, put your foot there, do this.
You didn't get scared about falling down or anything like that?
He rides mongo-footed.
What's mongo-footed? It's the same thing as goofy-footed?
It's the same thing, yeah, with the wrong foot in
right.
front.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've fallen a bunch of times. I have a big gash on my knee that I was just looking at this morning. I was like, man, I really
do you go out a lot? Do you ride out?
My knee. Well, only when it's warm out. I'm really like a fair weather skater. So,
can you do an ollie?
No, and that's the thing that I have to point out because people get an image of me skateboarding and they think like I'm doing all sorts of tricks. I don't do any tricks. In fact, the whole summer I just tried to figure out how to jump a curb and I couldn't do it. So I'm really very, very conservative. But I use it as transportation. Like I move around the streets of the city on my skateboard and or awesome. I just, put my headphones in and just go for pleasure and just go around a park or something. I love it. I need to get a little bit over my fear of falling because you fall off a skateboard,
it's not the same
even going
thing.
at 10 miles an hour, you can get kind of hurt. I've fallen off before. I've hurt my butt. I've gashed my knees. I've gotten the gravel in the palms of my hands, and I don't wear any protective gear. Everybody's always on my case about that. And I'm just like, screw it. Give me a pair of Converse and a pair of shorts and I'm ready to go. So...
Now, what about hooping? You used to be a hula hooper, right? But now you say you're a former hula hooper. You're an ex-hula hooper.
I haven't touched a hula hoop in over a year.
Why?
I don't know what happened to me. It was like one day I was doing it, and I was like, I just feel so stupid right now. There was something like about the physicality of it that just aggravated me, and I put down the hoop and I was like, I'm done with this. I don't know what happened. I really don't. I just was watching a video of me hooping that I had put on YouTube, and it's funny, internally, like I can remember how fun that was, and I loved like cranking the music and loved hula hooping to mashups like Girl Talk and so forth. But looking at myself do it, I was like, oh, you look like a douche. It's just
I love it.
I just stepped outside of myself and got sort of self-conscious about it. And then the minute you get self-conscious about it, then you just can't do it anymore because you're just automatically aware of like how you look.
And it just loses the fun aspect of it.
It lost its fun for me, and it was replaced by skateboarding. I have been moving steadily back in time. Like I've become at one with like my 17-year-old self. I really have. What I do now is not what I did at 17, but there's an element of like 16, 17-year-old about me.
How were you when you were 17?
I don't know, but I was not as much fun as I am now.
You weren't?
No, I don't think so. I realized one day that the things that I'm most interested in are the same things that like teenage boys are interested in. Like I love Jackass movies. I love horror films. I love Metalocalypse. Do you even know what that is?
It's a cartoon?
It's a cartoon.
With Pickles the drummer?
No, Pickles isn't the drummer.
Oh, he's not?
I don't think so.
I think...
No, he's the guitar player.
Whatever, there's a Pickles in it. That's all I know.
But anyway, yeah, so I'm talking about, like, those kind of teenage endeavors and, I don't know, lighting off firecrackers and so forth and just being mischievous at the mall. I went to the... I'm the mom of choice for, like, my girls, their group of friends. There's no
Obviously.
other mom. They don't want any other mom to like come to the movies with them or do stuff with them.
How old are your girls?
Well, my older one's 12, so her friends are like 12 and 13, and the other one's 10. But 10-year-old doesn't do this, but the 12-year-old, like that's their big thing on a Friday. Let's go to the mall. So one week I was taking them all into a horror movie that was rated R, and I didn't think it was going to be that big a deal, but the whole like word of mouth, it just spread. Before I knew it, there were like 17 kids with me, and I was the one adult. And I still thought, okay, there's an adult, rated R, they're all with me. They all paid, they all filed through, and then got turned back by the manager who said, you cannot I was like, wait, I'm the adult here. He's like, no, it's 5 kids to 1 adult. I'm like, who made up that rule? He's like, that's the rule of whatever.
Did you get any backlash from the parents or anything like that for doing that?
No, but a friend of mine said the same thing. She's like, were you allowed to take? I was like, listen, I'm only responsible for the little handful of kids I had. If there's a bunch of kids that came to the mall and were expecting to get into the rated R movie because of me, that's not my responsibility. So I start kind of negotiating with the manager. I was like, listen, I'm going to keep them all under control. Don't worry about that. They're not going to get loud and throw popcorn. And I've got permission slips from all their parents. And for a second he believed me. He was like, oh, well, let me see. And I was like, no, I don't really have permission slips.
Oh, my God.
But
you should have stuck with the story.
Well, he was going to ask to see them. So
they're on the
kids were cracking up. They couldn't believe I was trying so hard to get them in. And then a couple of the kids were like, but my mom is here. She's shopping. Maybe she'll come in. So we gathered up 2 more moms, and they were like, no, we're not going into to see this movie. We don't want to see it. And that was it. We had to abandon that idea. Another time I was hanging out with them, they were all bored out of their skulls at the mall. So I was like, I have an idea. I was like, let's go into this store and we'll get this one kid, a boy, to try on dresses. We'll say that there's a play that we have to be. It's called Victor Victoria, and he has to dress as a woman in the play. We're looking for a dress for him. I was like, you up for it? He's like, hell yeah, I'll do that. He was so cute. And so we go into the dressing room, and it's all these kids. He puts on the first dress, he opens the door, and it's like the paparazzi. Every one of those kids has, their iTouch devices or their iPhones or God knows what, and they're all taking pictures of him, and they're putting it instantly. It's on their Facebook pages or their Instagram accounts. It's just like we're walking around the mall later, and the other kids are like, "Yo, we saw you in that dress!" Like they had already seen it.
It was already getting around.
It was already got around.
Everything gets around so fast, right?
Yeah, it's a little scary.
As soon as something happens, it's like how people get all their news now is through Twitter, right?
Yeah.
Are you into that Twitter stuff?
No, I don't.
Not me.
Don't
me neither.
tweet.
I don't do any of that either. So, all right.
Go ahead. You would ask me a question.
You were on the JWOW and Snooki show.
Right.
Right? On MTV.
I was.
How did that come about? How did you get on the show? Tell me all about that.
That is an amazing story because it is perfect synchronicity. This has never happened to me before in my life, but I decided I needed to be on that show because I wanted to give Nicole a childbirth education lesson. And in fact, I should rephrase that because I was happy to give her the lesson off camera. I just really felt like she was somebody who needed this, I've worked with pregnant teenagers before, and she was a little closer to their approach than she was to my typical upper middle class, in their 30s couples. So I wrote a nice letter. I stapled my business card to it. I put it on hot pink paper because that's her favorite color. And I walked over to the firehouse and I just went up to one of the production people. I was like, listen, I'm a childbirth educator in the neighborhood, and I would like you to get this to Nicole or at least to a producer so that, they know that my services are available. I turn around and walk into this very coffee shop that we're in right now, and my phone rings. I pick it up, and it's an MTV producer. She's like, you're not going to believe this, but we were just emailing you. I was like, you're kidding me. Wait, to teach? She's like, yeah, we're looking to do a class for, and they're very cagey about, what the show is and who it's for and so forth, but it was obvious, what was going on. And I was like, well, I don't have a class going on. I thought I could do a private. And she's like, no, we'd really like to do a class kind of thing. So anyway, we broke the facade, and then I started talking to her and helping her, production-wise. I was like, look, I know pregnant people in the neighborhood. If you want me to get a class together, I will help you do that. And so as a combination of efforts between her efforts, my efforts, and the nice people at Hamilton Health and Fitness, we were able to get a setting and get some people in there to
so if anybody
to make it look like a real class.
If anybody's interested in what this beautiful MILF Jayne looks like, all you have to do is just go on and watch that episode, right? Watch the Watch the episode where you're
teaching. It was
teaching.
the final episode, I think, of the Snooki JWOW Show when they were in Jersey City, and I don't like the way I looked on camera. It was just weird. It was weird angles.
But a lot of people
but thank
knew.
you for your compliment.
A lot of people knew that this was happening, right? Because, like you said before, big fish in a small pond. A lot of people know what's going on with Jersey City, and they knew that Snooki and JWOW were coming here to film the show.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talk about it.
Right, sure. There was a lot of talk about it, and everybody was like, "Oh my God, she's pregnant. She needs to get a class from you." But I signed that contract whereby I was not allowed to talk about it. I had to sit on that information for like 4 months before it aired.
Really?
Yeah. I think we filmed in March, April, May, June, July. No, it aired in like August or September, almost 6 months after the fact.
Now, tell me about where they were living, because that's a whole weird thing, too, right?
Yeah, that was really weird. When I heard they were coming to town and there was some press on it, they showed Mercer Street, and they were like, they're going to be living in this beautiful converted firehouse. And I just almost fell off my bed. I was like...
Why?
Because I lived there for 2 years, and it was my home for all that time. I mean, I was there with my girls. That's where I landed after I left my husband. I really wanted to get out of my house. I just couldn't stand it anymore.
How did you get to rent that space?
The owners were good friends of mine, and I just wrote them an email, and I said, I need a place to stay. I didn't say rent. I was like, I need a place to stay. I didn't like paint a dramatic picture like I was a battered wife or anything. I was simply like, things are not going well in my marriage, and I really need to like be somewhere else, and I can't really afford very much right now. Can we work something out? And they were like, you know what, it's on the market right now, and you might have to endure real estate agents coming in and out and people traipsing through it, but we like the idea of someone being there and taking care of it. We actually have some issues with a leak and this and that, and it's also nice for the home to look a bit lived in when people come to view it. They had left every stick of furniture in the place. I expected to walk in and it was going to be empty. Their grand piano was there. Their couches, their enormous, gorgeous California king-size bed was there. I mean, it was amazing. I was blown away by the generosity. I just was like, this is too good to be true.
So it was a converted firehouse?
Yeah. It was like from the 1850s, I believe, and it had gone through a bunch of incarnations, but this couple, when they bought it, they just made it gorgeous. Like, they kept the integrity of the building in place. There's all pressed tin on the walls, on the ceilings. Somebody else might have been like, oh, we need to put in central air conditioning, and ruined all of that. But they put in beautiful hardwood floors. On the ground floor, they put in radiant heat, so it was all cement, but it was warm. Mm-hmm. And they just did it in a really gorgeous way. It was like what they call sort of shabby chic. Like, there's some pieces that look, like are antique-y, but other ones that are like from the Salvation Army. It was kind of like that. It was so beautiful.
And it was a really large space?
I think it's 5,000 square feet on one floor.
And you ended up living here for free?
I lived there as the caretaker. I had to do certain things for the upkeep of the place, but yes, they didn't charge me rent.
For 2 years?
Yes.
That's awesome.
Oh, my God. It was just an awesome time. I mean, my girls loved it. On the downstairs, there was a swing and a rope, and, it was the most perfect play area. And, I was in the downtown area. Oh, that's how I started to realize.
Where is this place? This is over...
It's right there. Yeah.
Where?
Right behind you.
Really?
I'll show you it, yeah. Just past, you see Marco and Pepe, the restaurant right on the corner? It's right next to it.
Really?
Right next to it,
So you used to come here a lot, right?
This was.
The
I mean, it was 2 blocks from the path. I was still going to work at the time, so it was just super convenient. And it was such an extraordinary place to live. Every day that I woke up, I was like, it was like waking up in heaven. It was just
And then for some reason,
beautiful.
they found this place to rent for JWOW and Snooki for the show.
Yeah, I mean, the couple, it went through some different incarnations, and they were using it for their own uses for a little while, and then they decided to make it like an upscale rental. Like, say you're a family that came over from Europe, and you're going to stay, you want to visit New York for 2 weeks or something. So you rent a house that you can actually cook in and is close, has close proximity to New York, and then you can do whatever you want. Like, that was sort of the idea. And maybe businessmen or something, I don't know. I never really pursued what became of it afterwards. It was just, I'll tell you one thing, though. In the years after I had moved out, I almost could not drive down the street. It was like I felt heartbroken.
How did you move out? Like, how did that come into play?
It was hard. I mean, I had been there for a long time, and then they needed it for their own uses. The whole time it was supposed to sell, and then they abruptly turned around and said, you know what, we're not selling it.
Wow.
We're not selling it. And then it was, we're not selling it, but you can still stay there. And then it was, we're not selling it, but we need it back for some of our own uses. And, it was time. I felt like I traded a great place for a great boyfriend, because the things came on the heels of one another.
Okay, gotcha.
It was like I moved out of there. I was very depressed about that. Now I was going to have to go back to paying rent like an ordinary person.
Did you save a lot of money?
No, I didn't. I'm not a good saver. You would think that I did, but
neither.
I wasn't making a ton of money at my job. I was kind of like living off of that and so forth. But I did have money in the bank because my husband and I had sold a property that we owned, so I wasn't worried about that. I did the math once and tried to figure out, like, okay, if I really rented that place and kept up my lifestyle, like, what would my income have to be? And I calculated it. I would have had to be making like $250,000 a year to like have had the lifestyle that I had.
Wow, and you just had it for 2 years.
It was
free.
amazing.
That's a gift from the universe, right?
It was really amazing. I really, to this day, like I said, when I drive by it, I feel like it's like the love of my life that we broke up, and I'm still heartbroken about. Like, I still can't bear to see him on the street, kind of a thing. So when Snooki and JWOW were moving in, I felt like they were like dating my old boyfriend. I mean, I literally was like, oh my God, what are they doing in my house?
And so you caught the word on the street that they were going to be moving in there?
As soon as it went, I wasn't on the street. It was in the press. Like, it was like the first article that got launched about it, and I was like, holy crow. And then right away, I posted it on Facebook, and right away, Jennifer Weiss, who used to write for the Star Ledger and wrote for a number of Jersey City papers, she had done a story on me in that firehouse and had all these wonderful pictures. And she was like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. We're going to relaunch your story. And it got picked up by a bunch of different people. The Daily News ran a story about it. It was all like...
Really?
Yeah, it was all about like me living there.
That's awesome.
It was weird. They focused on me instead of the couple that actually owned the place, because I was much more visible. I had that big story about me in the Star Ledger, so they were like, we have this, and she's a childbirth educator, and what? She has a public access show? All the pieces were falling into place.
You asked me before, why would I pick you? I've been close to be boring.
I want to talk about skateboarding. No. I really miss it. I miss it so much that I'm this close to booking a trip to LA just to visit a friend and like have the opportunity to skateboard. I do. I really do. I have a little like weird dream inside me that I will move there someday.
I mean, I've never been there before, but I went out there recently for that America's Worst Tattoo Show.
I love your new tattoo. It's really an improvement.
Well, but anyway, they flew me out to L.A.
Yes.
Right? And I didn't really like it. Everybody seemed like they looked like gangbangers, kind of. Like they were all in the NWA or something like that, you know?
It depends what you're exposed to, you know? When I was out there, I was with people who live there, and they just showed me a good time. I went to great restaurants. Venice Beach is awesome. I love just driving around and seeing palm trees.
Don't you love the culture that here, though, as far as mass transit and stuff? You don't have to drive all over the place.
That doesn't really appeal to me. I think that if I spent more time in LA, I might feel that there's a... people always say it's just there's a cultural disparity in terms of people are more sophisticated in New York. They're more intellectual.
I love that.
They read more.
I really love that.
I'm not saying that that's my observation. I'm saying that that's what people tend to say about it.
I'm saying it from a person who's lived outside of here and know that that's the truth. I even have a saying for it for as far as Florida. I think I could apply it out to LA too. However, I haven't talked to enough people. But I'd rather live in sanity than in sunshine. You know?
Oh.
I would. I'd rather be around these people who are very intelligent, like yourself, who you can talk to. I get off on that. I don't get off on talking to the imbecile driving the truck who watches the show that I'm on, reality shows or something like that.
I understand what you're saying. Yeah, I haven't spent enough time out of this area to be really bowled over by that. Yeah,
because I should tell you, but I instantly got like I just was there in LA and I was looking around. I was like, damn, this is like a Florida-esque kind of thing.
I have to tell
you,
about once a week, my boyfriend will say to me, "You don't know what it's like in the rest of the country.
You don't.
You have no clue.
You have no clue."
Because I'll be like, "Why is everybody so uptight about blah, blah, blah?" He'll be like, "Oh, God." He's like, your perspective, your mentality, the entire sort of culture you're in embraces that sort of thing readily, but other people are not so
not even close
relaxed,
to being like
accommodating, liberal, whatever way you want to look at it. And I always crack up and I'm like, oh, that can't be true. He's like, trust me, it's true. I've lived in the Midwest. I know what it's like.
Wow.
And I always laugh. He's really good at navigating that. Like, he's super nice to everybody, and like, that's not a New York kind of a man. He always tells me I'm very abrasive and abrupt with people. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm matter of fact. He's like, well, that's your way of saying it.
I grew up being very abrasive and matter of fact. I
Yeah.
don't know why. My parents are from Connecticut. They're from Bridgeport, Connecticut.
So they
which
imparted
is the armpit.
that north.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they imparted that like northeastern
onto me.
mentality.
And I always felt
right?
like I was a fish out of water. I was
Yeah.
acting like that. I was talking like that. Why? I'm always offending people for whatever reason, just being myself. I
Right.
was.
Right.
And when I came up here, I fit right the fuck in. It was
Yes.
awesome.
Yeah,
You know?
no, you're right. That must have felt like coming
It felt
home.
great.
Yeah.
It felt so great. I love it. You
Yeah.
know? So, but anyway.
I guess people do feel like that about New York, but yeah, I mean, apart from living in Paris, that's the longest I've spent outside of the New York area.
But that's another very liberal place, right? I mean,
Oh yeah,
Jesus.
there's no. I mean,
So that was
super
just,
liberal.
That was just more
no
more
comparison.
liberal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, you pose in stock photography photos. Is that right?
It doesn't exactly work that way, but yes, I've done a whole bunch of stock photography images. I do the images for this agency, and then they sell them to a bigger stock agency. And I didn't know this getting into
Is it
it.
like Getty Images?
Yes.
Yes.
I didn't know this getting into it. Yes, it is with Getty. So a lot of people see those images, and as a result, I got picked up by so many different avenues. But the worst one was I was in an ad for the Republican National Campaign. Before Obama was reelected, there was like a flurry. I mean, there had been a bunch of ads, but there was one in particular from the Republicans that showed like vignettes of what appeared to be possible Democrats or liberals or whatever looking a bit disgruntled, like, hey, we voted for this guy, but we're not happy and we're not going to vote for him again. That was sort of the sentiment behind the spot. So, of course, someone saw it first on the news on MSNBC very early in the morning and made mention of it on my Facebook page. But he saw it with the sound down, and because there was an image of Obama at the end of the ad, he was like, I think you're in an ad campaign for Obama. And that made me so happy. And then later he sends me the clip. He's like, uh-oh, I was wrong. So it turned out that this like dyed-in-the-wool liberal, me, ends up in this Republican campaign that aired all over the place for like a couple of weeks. I had people calling me left and right being like, oh my God, I just saw you in a Republican ad. How can that be?
What was that music video you were in recently? I saw you for a second. You're in a music video?
Yeah, that's also through the same stock agency. They do stills and they do little video clips. So there's another old video clip of me sitting in front of the computer. My daughters come over and they look at the computer with me. That ended up being in a national ad for Club Penguin, which is like this big thing that, kids buy into.
How the hell did
all
you
the
get
time.
into this?
And it was on the Disney Channel. Just a friend. She was like, listen, I have this little stock agency, and I'd like to use you and your girls because you have the kind of look that we're looking for. And so I don't know how to describe that, but I'm sort of ethnically generic. Like I could look, I mean, I don't look all American. I look like I could be anything.
No, I know.
I could be anything Mediterranean, basically.
Right.
Or even Eastern
Or even
Europe.
Jewish.
Well, Jewish could be Mediterranean or
You
Eastern
dressed up
European.
like an Hasidic Jew, right?
Well, that was my best costume ever. I love that costume. Me as a Hasidic Jew boy.
You look right on that one.
Love that one. But anyway, so that's my stock story.
You know what? Just to end this, let's just give you a little bit of a plug, okay? We'll talk about your column that you write for the Jersey City Independent and also your public access show, which is by the same name, Mamarama. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, I mean, to be perfectly honest, I have I haven't been contributing very much to both of those endeavors. It's hard for me to write my blog. I liked my blog to be very heartfelt and very real, and so sometimes if I'm not
sometimes you're feeling just like you're forcing it just for the hell of it.
And I can't stand to
Oh,
write
that's
that
good,
way.
though. So you post stuff when you feel the need to actually.
I like there to be integrity and authenticity behind it, right? And my show is just tricky. I feel like I'm just at a point where I need all new equipment, and like I'm just technically behind the curve, and that's slowing me down. I always have ideas for shows, but then I never follow through with them, or when I do, then I don't get them edited. But I do everything myself, so it's,
You edit it yourself as well?
Yeah, it's all up to me.
What do you edit it through?
I use iMovie, which is so like,
no, it's fine.
Pedestrian, whatever. I can't wrap my mind around what's the higher end one that everybody uses. Final Cut. Yeah, I just can't do that. I'm not sophisticated enough with my. Yes, I've tried a few times, but.
So when was the last time that you filmed an episode?
Right after the hurricane.
Really?
Yeah, that was a while ago.
I think you need to definitely do that.
I do. I wanted to do one on lube because I posted that picture on Facebook of me holding the two different kinds of lubes. Did you see that?
No.
Oh, I was holding like this expensive lubricant and then the CVS version, the generic version of it. And I was like, it's good to know that the ingredients are exactly the same. And I got so much response to that because, people find lube kind of fun to talk about. But I was going to tie that into my parenting thing because it is something that impacts parents, particularly
I got one more
after they
question
give birth.
for you that this is actually really interesting to me, and I really wanted to ask you. Okay. So they're going to remain nameless, but they're personally attached to me, these people that got together through me, actually. I hooked them up together. They were in love. They were married like 5 years. They're trying to have children. They couldn't. They finally had a kid, a beautiful little daughter, gorgeous, right? The new mother, the wife, really just loved the kid so much. She had like birthdays for the child every month for the first year. It's funny. And she just turned 1. But every month it was like
that's cute.
This month birthday.
Right. She's super into it, right?
Very recently we found out, this is like a bombshell went off. We never thought there was any problems with the marriage whatsoever, that he has been cheating on her since like November, and he's not in love with her anymore. And this is just crazy to me because it seemed like they were a perfect relationship. And I was thinking, you have a little thing that you talk about is postpartum intimacy.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And how to regain your romantic connection. You talk about that and stuff. Do you think that has to do with that?
Oh, yeah. I think that's a serious issue that not enough people pay attention to.
Do you feel like, because this is what I felt like, I feel like it was kind of, both are at fault, sort of. That maybe she was imparting so much attention onto the child that maybe she was lacking a little bit paying attention to him. And
well, I mean, I can't pretend to know because I don't know the couple in question. I only know just a little piece of information that you gave me. And, for all we know, or for all I know, this had been brewing for a long time before the baby actually arrived. I'm just putting that out there as a possibility. But all things being equal, I think every couple goes through an enormous adjustment period once a baby is born for many reasons. For the reason that one of the things that you just cited with too much attention being paid to the baby and not enough nurturing of the couple. The mother's libido is usually much lower after she gives birth. That's Mother Nature stepping in, saying, we don't want you to have another baby too close to that first baby. So particularly if a woman is breastfeeding, there is a hormone fluctuation that actually lowers her libido and prevents her from wanting more sex.
Why do Irish people always do it? Irish twins.
That I don't really understand. That's actually a mystery that I would like to resolve because that they've got to be breastfeeding. So how does that happen? Not either they're just having sex without really wanting to have sex, or the other thing is like when you're breastfeeding, your ovulation is suppressed. So generally speaking, you're not ovulating for at least the first 6 months. So I don't know how Irish twins happen so readily, but let's push that out of the category for a second.
Okay.
But anyway, there are a lot of things that are stacked up against couples who have just given birth and experiencing what life is like as new parents. And a huge part of that is the intimacy and the bond that the couple has with one another. So I do think
Do you think that these people might be able to regain their relationship? I mean, they really were, like, they were awesome together. And don't you think this has a little bit of a contribution to it?
That's up to both of them to make a commitment to helping themselves.
Do you feel like this is kind of like a normal thing that people go through, though? I mean, they after having a child, after wanting a child so long.
Well, it's extreme in the sense that he actually acted on his impulses, and it's causing a breakup between the two of them. You got to be strong. You got to be, as a man, like, you got to know that this shit happens, and you can't fucking act on that kind of stuff. That's how I feel. Well, you really have to be, people don't think very hard when they are acting out. I mean, that's the whole, that's the whole thing behind it, yeah. Right? So it's hard to say, like, oh, well, you really should have considered that more carefully. You really can't apply that.
So he's a fucking idiot.
You kind of have to catch. You kind of have to catch the problem as it's happening, and that's what I try to do. I've had workshops with women before who have recently given birth and who are complaining that they can't kind of get their mojo back, and that it's creating a rift between them and their partner.
Yeah. So what do you say to them?
Oh, I mean, I have an entire workshop that's built around that.
So
if somebody
wants to reach out to you, they're a new parent, right? And they live in the Jersey City area or the New York metro area, right?
Yeah.
What should they do?
Just go to my website and write me an email. If they come to me early in their pregnancy, I work as a consultant to help them find an appropriate practice. That means, like, the right OB or the right midwife or whatever, and also the appropriate facility. Do they want a hospital, a birthing center? Are they thinking about birthing at home? I can go over all those options with them. And then, just kind of be their point person. I have people who just email me all the time saying, I'm having this test done. I don't know how to feel about this. My blood pressure is up. My this is that.
What if
pregnancy is a very nerve-wracking time.
What if they're elsewhere in the country and they hear this and they want to reach out to you? Could you do something via Skype or something like that?
Well, I can help people in a different capacity. I can't advise them to the specifics about the facility or the midwifery practice that I would recommend, but I can help them in other ways. And then, of course, once they're at the end of their pregnancy, then they come back to me for childbirth education and possibly newborn care.
Right. And so what should they do? What's your email? What's your website? All that stuff.
My website is mamarama.tv, okay, because I started out on TV. And my email is Jayne, Jayne, @mamarama.tv. It's right there on the website.
That's an interesting way to spell Jane.
Well, I didn't make it up.
These crazy parents of yours.
I think I might have been named after Jane Mansfield, who was like a sex symbol in the 1960s.
Oh, look at that.
Look at that. She was decapitated in a tragic car accident.
Oh, my God. She was?
Yeah, look it up.
All right, I will. So, anyway, it's been very interesting talking to you today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for meeting me here.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate it.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
For the Bobby Pickles podcast at the Beechwood Café in Jersey City, I'm Bobby Pickles.
FatEnzo.com, 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 FatEnzo.com. Enzo.comfat, 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 Enzo.com.